Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jan Ślewiński. With the annual Pride Parade taking place in Warsaw today, the question of LGBTQ rights is once again high on the agenda. Poland's political scene remains sharply divided between conservatives and progressives, and caught among the intense debate are ordinary people who simply want to pursue romance and happiness in their lives. Joining us here today is Michał Suchora, spokesperson for the Green Party. So let's begin with the Pride Parade in Warsaw today, and with the broader context. Do you think the question of rights has become more difficult given the recent developments on Poland's political scene?
By all means, the president-elect, Karol Nawrocki, has already announced that he will take no steps to make our lives any easier. So yes, indeed, it will have a major influence on the development of human and queer rights here in Poland.
So if the government wants to introduce any progressive legislation, it might actually face opposition from the president from now on, right?
This is sure, but
Which is not a massive change, because the current president was also from the conservative camp, so he was also taking a similar line.
Yes, it will be just continuation of Andrzej Duda politics, but the Prime Minister Donald Tusk has already announced he will try to find a way through to block the veto of President Nawrocki.
Well, is it technically possible, though, given the legislative framework and the legal system, to actually have any sort of legislation which the president doesn't want, unless you have a very substantial majority to overrule the veto?
Well, it's not only about the legislation, it's about the, let's say, the general mood. As you probably remember, under our former government, the hate speech and the homophobic speech was legitimate. Even here in the studio, in the studio of the national TV, such statements were possible. Now everything has changed, and I do believe that the Prime Minister Donald Tusk will take steps to elaborate, to work on the human rights here in Poland.
Now, some activists had accused the Liberal government of not doing enough. They said that they expected more, and they actually didn't get many of the things that they wanted to see. And the government often said, well, this is because of the president. But they say, okay, but this is, this is not sufficient.
Well, I am one of them. We, the Polish Greens, we are part of the government. Of course, we are the most progressive wings, and we would love many things to happen much faster. But on the other hand side, we need to face the fact that the government is composed out of so many fractions, so many parties, such as conservative PSL. So we are aware that this action needs time.
Do you think we might at some point move closer to a point when essentially the rights of the LGBT community will become something that's not political in nature? Like today, for example, we have women's voting rights. Now, this is not controversial to pretty much anyone, but it used to be back in the centuries past. So a certain change in society had to take place. Do you think that at some point people will be able to separate political agenda from the simple right to pursue happiness, as it was defined, for example, in the American Constitution, the right to pursue happiness as such?
Well, I think it will always be political, as the women's rights. It's still political, even in the, let's say, developed Western countries, even in the United States. We are society, we are different from each other, and this will be always an issue. And then, one thing is the law. The other thing is our everyday life. And to tell you the truth, I live here in Warsaw with my partner. I face no hate speech. I have faced no dangerous situations. I live like everybody else, with one slight difference: I cannot get married. But otherwise, it's on the practical level, we live like everybody else.
And do you think that, for example, Poland will also accept the phenomenon? Of course, there's nothing strange when you look at it, but in the United States, a while ago, people actually realized that there are also, for example, conservative gay voters. And to some, it came across as a shock, because in Poland, the scene used to be much more sharply divided. Do you think that people will realize that diversity also encompasses the diversity of political opinions?
Well, let's be frank. There are many queer people in the conservative parties such as PiS and Konfederacja. There are many queers in the Catholic Church. So it's not that we are all liberals. We are very different, as the society is very diverse. It's about diversity, actually.
Sometimes the media seems to assume otherwise, that if you are a member of the community, you have to be a liberal. At least it used to be the case that people thought like this.
Well,
do you think this is changing?
Much more elaborate than that.
And do you think that, looking beyond Poland now, the situation in Europe is going in the right direction or not? Because we have countries such as Hungary, which have expressly introduced legislation which is actually discriminatory in nature. So it actually bans pride parades as such. It introduces criteria for certain content to be removed based on what they refer to as propaganda. Do you think there is a risk of this sort of backlash actually appearing in other countries too?
Well, the more fierce this fight against queer people is, the stronger we fight for. And taking under consideration the example of Hungary and the Pride in Budapest, which was massive, it was massively frequented by liberal politicians from all over Europe. So yes, we will fight back.
What about the United States? Do you think that there is actually the sort of cultural backlash happening there right now? For example, some people have pointed out that companies no longer celebrate Pride Month as openly as they used to. And there is this huge discussion about DEI, against, about what some people perceived to be an overabundance of, this inclusive messaging. But right now it seems to be like turning in the other direction. Do you think this is a risk that ultimately it could actually result in a less inclusive environment again?
Well, I just got back from New York, and seriously, I see no difference under Trump. The only difference is that queer community has become more aware of the fact that nothing is given for granted and nothing is given forever. And even though Stonewall happened 50 years ago, there are still things to be done. There are still actions to be undertaken in order to guarantee each of us the same rights.
Some people have pointed out that some social media companies, for example, are pandering to the new administration, that they, for example, are removing safeguards concerning disinformation and hate speech. Do you think that this is a risk, that the online environment could become more hostile, that it could follow in the footsteps, for example, of X, formerly known as Twitter, which has made this sharp turn in a specific political direction recently?
Well, if Twitter doesn't want us, we will find our space, as we did physically, as we did politically before.
Of course, but aren't you concerned that false narratives are going to be spreading there? Because there are actors spreading false narratives concerning politics, for example, the war in Ukraine. Equally, they could be spreading similar narratives concerning the LGBTQ community.
Of course, it has always been like that. It has always been claimed that, we spread diseases such as HIV, which is not truth. And again, the more misinformation is spread, the stronger our answer is.
But do you think there is a risk that this answer will not be heard on specific platforms? Like, for example, you've mentioned that X might not be a friendly platform, so obviously users will migrate if they want to. But then again, leaving this platform as it is, as this sort of bubble, could lead to these narratives becoming stronger among certain circles, if they are not opposed, if people do not have the opportunity to hear a different voice.
I think too many things have already happened to stop it. It's like trying to stop with the to fight with the gravitation or whatever the other physical laws. Again, we need to be active, we need to be vigilant, we need to observe what's going on both politically and socially in order to keep our rights and to give more room for the queer community, not only here in Poland, but also in Ukraine and Belarus, etc., etc., because Poland has become a hub for queer community from countries where the situation is even more severe, such as Ukraine and Belarus.
Is the situation severe in Ukraine, though? Ukraine has often stated that they actually have fairly progressive rights. With Russia and Belarus, naturally, this is very different. Putin's regime is actively persecuting the LGBT community, among others, also ethnic minorities. And also. But what about Ukraine? Because this actually it goes against what I am familiar with.
Well, point taken. Ukrainian government seems to be much more progressive than Polish one, even though the war is still on. What I meant is that Warsaw and other big Polish cities have become shelter for LGBT community, Ukrainian LGBT community. This is what I meant. And now we will face it today during the Warsaw Pride. You will be surprised how many Ukrainians and Free Belarus flags will appear at the Gay Pride.
One final question. What would be your message to people who, for example, are susceptible to, to more conservative narratives, but who simply do not really know what this community is all about? That they might actually take in some sort of prejudice. What would be the message to them so that they actually can see it in a different light than they have done?
I would say that you would be surprised how many queer folks are around you. Your hairdresser, your taxi driver, your nurse. We are everywhere, and we are one of you. So just accept the fact that we're here and we are not going anywhere.
Michał Suchora was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And I'm Michał Suchora. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news, updates and commentary.